Every time I get sick, I think I'm losing control. My numbers climb, insulin feels weaker, movement drops, everything that felt stable a week ago suddenly behaves completely different. And the story I used to tell myself was, I messed up, but I was wrong. Because when you're sick, your body doesn't care about stable glucose, it cares about survival. And that shift from stability to stress mode is what nobody really explains. So you panic, you micromanage, you feel like you're failing, but you're not. Your body is doing exactly what it's designed to do. And once you understand that, sick days become predictable. In this video, I show you 3 things. First, what actually happens when you get sick, the observable pattern you've probably already noticed. Second, why your body does this, the biological reason behind rising numbers, backed by research. And third, how to respond without panic, without perfection, just calm adjustments. Let's start with what you've probably already felt. When you get sick, 3 things happen. And if you've been through this, you recognize all of them. There's an old saying, it comes for 3 days, it stays for 3 days, and it goes for 3 days. And it's actually pretty accurate. You start noticing something around day 2 or 3, when your body really starts fighting. That's when insulin demand suddenly spikes. That leads to the first change. Insulin demand goes up, sometimes significantly. I noticed that at my breakfast, same meal I always eat. Normally I need 1 unit of insulin per 10 grams of carbs. My blood sugar stays stable around 120, but when I'm sick, suddenly I need 2 units per 10 grams of carbs. Double. That's the first signal something has shifted. Second, movement drops. And movement is normally my biggest tool. I can't do my workouts anymore. On really sick days, with body aches, maybe fever, I barely move around the house. And normally, after a meal with more than 70 grams of carbs, I go for a 20-minute walk to flatten the curve. Without that walk, I need almost a third more insulin for the same meal. So now you have less movement and a higher insulin demand happening at the same time. Third, obviously numbers drift higher, but even if you're eating less. On the peak days of illness, even if my blood sugar is stable at 120, it can suddenly start climbing to 160 or 170 without eating anything. Your liver is releasing glucose to give your body fuel to fight. And if you don't understand what's happening, you think you did something wrong, but you didn't. This is expected behavior during illness. So that's what you feel. But why does this happen? Why does your body suddenly behave this way? Illness is not a glucose problem, it's a stress response. When you get sick, your body enters survival mode. And here's what most people don't realize. Your body doesn't distinguish between I'm fighting an infection and a tiger's chasing me. Stress is stress, danger is danger. So it does what it's always done. Mobilize energy fast, release glucose, block insulin, free up fat for fuel. Short term, that saves your life. Long term, that same mechanism destroys your metabolism. But your body doesn't think long term when you're sick. It thinks survive today. That's why it releases stress hormones. Cortisol, adrenaline, those hormones have one job: make energy available fast. And this isn't just my experience. Studies show exactly what's happening. Cortisol directly reduces insulin sensitivity. It increases the production in the liver. It reduces glucose uptake in your muscles. And adrenaline at physiological levels, the levels your body naturally produces during stress, it can completely block insulin secretion from your pancreas. So now you have 2 things happening at once: more glucose entering the blood from your liver and less ability to use it efficiently. That's why your numbers rise even if you eat less. Your body is prioritizing fighting infection over glucose stability. This doesn't happen evenly. In the early days, when you're just starting to feel off, insulin resistance is mild. But once you hit the peak, fever, body aches, that fog in your head, that's when your body is fighting the hardest. That's when cortisol is the highest. That's when insulin resistance peaks. And then as the symptoms fade, resistance starts dropping again. So let's summarize. When you're sick, survival is the goal. The mistake is expecting your body to behave like it does on a normal day. It's in a stress state. And stress states always shift glucose behavior. High numbers during illness, they're a biological consequence, not a personal failure. And understanding that alone reduces half the panic. So now you know what's happening and why it's happening. The question is, what do you actually do about it? After I understood what was happening biologically, my approach became completely different. When I see higher numbers on day 1, I observe. If my glucose runs higher after the same meal, I increase insulin slightly the next day. And here's how. Let's say I normally stay around 120 after breakfast, but today I spike to 220 and it's still climbing slowly. I look at my normal correction factor. How much insulin would I need to bring that down? Let's say 2 units. That tells me I was short by 2 units. So the next meal, I add those 2 units to my bolus. Then I watch again. If resistance is still there, I adjust again. This is experimentation. You become a scientist during sick days. You test, you observe, you refine. I don't touch my basal, my pump adjusts that automatically. I only adjust bolus. Now, insulin is one lever, but there's another tool that works even when you feel terrible. Movement. Even a slow walk after a higher carb meal can help bring glucose down without stacking insulin. I'm talking about 20 minutes after eating, fresh air, gentle movement, just helping the body use what's already there. And if you really can't move, if you're stuck in bed with body aches, here's something that still works. Calf raises. Sitting down, you sit in a chair, knees at 90 degrees, lift your heels up and down. Just use your calves. It sounds simple, but it works. Your calf muscles are some of the biggest glucose sinks in your body, and you can do this even when you feel terrible. Now, movement helps, but what you eat matters too, especially when insulin is unpredictable. When I'm sick, I reduce carbs, especially in the morning. Normally, after breakfast with carbs, my blood sugar goes up to 150, maybe 180. That's expected, but without carbs, it stays stable at 120, 130. So when I'm already dealing with higher insulin resistance, I keep breakfast low carb, more protein, more fiber, because that's just easier to manage when insulin is unpredictable. I'm trying to reduce variables, less things that can go wrong. Now, before we go further, there are a few things you need to watch out for. Things that can make sick days even more unpredictable. Example 1 is medication. Some cough syrups contain sugar. Ibuprofen can lower glucose, but it also reduces insulin sensitivity, so it's not straightforward. Read the labels, and if you're not sure, test more often or ask your healthcare professional. Catheter changes can become another issue. If you're on a pump, changing your catheter during illness can be tricky. The new insertion site needs time to become effective. So if you're already dealing with high numbers and resistant, a catheter change can make things worse temporarily. That's just timing. Now, everything we've talked about so far is about managing the sick days. But there's one more phase that catches people off guard. Recovery. When the fever breaks, when the body aches fade, when the fog in your head clears, that's when your body stops fighting so hard. And that's when insulin resistance starts dropping. But here's the thing, don't drop your insulin doses immediately. Observe for a day or two, then adjust slowly, because you don't want to go from high resistance to sudden lows. Give your body time to transition back. If you have type 2 diabetes, this applies to you too. The stress response is the same. Cortisol still reduces insulin sensitivity. Your liver still releases more glucose. The difference is how effective your own insulin still is. But the principle stays the same. Illness shifts your body into stress mode. And that changes how glucose behaves. The first sick days always feel chaotic because you don't know what's happening yet. But once you've gone through it consciously, you recognize the pattern faster. You know resistance will rise. You know movement will drop. You know food will behave differently. So you're prepared. You increase deliberately. You monitor calmly. You adjust in phases. That changes everything. Because the second time you get sick, you're ready. Confidence doesn't come from perfect numbers. It comes from understanding. And once you've adapted once, illness becomes a predictable variation, not chaos. Just a phase you know how to navigate. If this helped you see sick days differently, that's the point. You're not failing when your numbers go up. Your body's doing what it's designed to do. We'll keep building this understanding together, step by step. Sometimes we talk about diabetes, sometimes structure, routines, or just how to live with all of this without feeling like you're constantly managing something. It's all connected. And if you have questions or something specific you're struggling with, tell me. I read everything. See you in the next one. Ciao.